difficulty is, of course, with terrorism, you're fighting phantoms.
Yes, Judy, I hear you fine. We are hearing from Mullah Omar in the spiritual capital of Afghanistan, about 300 miles south of here. Mullah Omar is the spiritual leader of the Taliban here, and he's recently issued a short statement. In that statement, he criticizes what he called an act of terrorism, and he was very explicit. He said that Osama bin Laden was not responsible for it, and he said that all he wanted for his country was peace, and peace for other countries in the world. And he went on to say that he believed Osama bin Laden could not have been responsible for such a complex act of terrorism. And he also said that if Afghanistan is a poor country, and therefore he believed there was no way that Afghanistan could be involved in such a complicated act of terrorism. Judy?
Cooper, first I want to ask you a question. The Associated Press has reported, according to two of its sources inside the United States, Pentagon, that the focus of the investigation has led back to a familiar name. Osama bin Laden is behind this. Reaction to that? Of course, it's not, you know, until President Bush gets up there and tells us what he thinks, we don't really know. But does that come as a surprise to you at all?
It doesn't come as a surprise to me that responsibility should have been lodged on that person. But I don't believe he has the resources.
You've talked about that. You
Yes.
don't think he has the wherewithal to pull this off?
I don't think so. I don't think he has an organization capable of doing this.
Is there an organization capable of doing this solo, or would it have to incorporate several groups?
I think they will have drawn personnel from several groups, but I think it's one organization that has a powerful group of persons who are capable of executing this in a technical fashion. They must have had pilots. They must have had people who understood airline operations at a very sophisticated level, and they must have had very considerable financing to enable them to do this that did not leave a significant paper trail.
You said this earlier, and I hate to reiterate it.
The difficulty is, of course, with terrorism, you're fighting phantoms.
Pictures as I do this from New York City in the moments following the worst of today's attacks on the World Trade Center in New York City, Lower Manhattan, where you can see people running in sheer terror away from either one of the two airplane crashes into the top of the World Trade Center, both towers of which collapsed later on, to the utter horror of people watching both live and on television across the United States and around the world, for that matter. New York City, the subject of the worst terrorism ever to strike the United States. So while we certainly mourn the loss here in Washington at the Pentagon, the airplane that crashed into the Pentagon, the other airplane that crashed near Pittsburgh, both of them commercial airliners with civilians on board, the loss of life in New York City is utterly unbelievable. Utterly unbelievable. Utterly unbelievable. Utterly unbelievable. Utterly unbelievable. Utterly unbelievable. Utterly unbelievable.
And the difficulty is, of course, with terrorism, you're fighting phantoms.
Happening, the Palestinian leadership itself was very quick to condemn the events in the strongest of terms.
First of all, I am offering my condolences, the condolences of the Palestinian people to the American President, President Bush, to his government, to the American people for this terrible act. We are completely shocked, unbelievable.
Selling author of so many novels, Tom Clancy, mysteries at the heart, Tom Clancy, of the military community, the intelligence community. People in our newsroom have been saying today what's happening is like right out of a Tom Clancy novel. But could you possibly imagine something like this to write about?
One of the problems with being a writer of fiction is that you can't keep up with all the madmen in the world as much as you try. And I frankly would have thought that this was not a credible threat to have 4 separate people decide to commit suicide in the same way on the same morning.
Why not?
I frankly would have thought that this was not a credible threat to have 4 separate people decide to commit suicide in the same way on the same morning.
Why not?
Unbelievable.
Because ending your own life is not something the average person does.
You have a full-scale military operation. And the difficulty is, of course, with terrorism, you're fighting phantoms. You have a full-scale military operation.
Unbelievable.
You have a full-scale military operation.
The Taliban government by Wakil Ahmed Mutawakkil and Mullah Omar, the leaders over there who have commented today, in which they deny that Osama bin Laden has ever organized terrorism out of Afghan territory.
You have a full-scale military operation. And the difficulty is, of course, with terrorism, you're fighting phantoms.
Even attacks taking place in different cities within minutes.
Let me ask you to sit there, James.
Unbelievable.
I frankly would have thought that this was not a credible threat to have 4 separate people decide to commit suicide in the same way on the same morning.
Why not?
You have a full-scale military operation.
Unbelievable.
You have a full-scale military operation. And the difficulty is, of course, with terrorism, you're fighting phantoms.
Mr. Kallstrom and Mr. Jenkins, I'll tell you, as we alert everyone else, that I'm looking at a report here from Reuters that a Palestinian group has claimed responsibility. Oh, my goodness.
You have a full-scale military operation.
Oh, my goodness. We're looking at a live picture from Washington, and there is smoke pouring out of the Pentagon. It would appear that there has been another major explosion, this one in the nation's capital. You are looking at a scene of apparent blast aftermath. There is smoke in the air over the Pentagon.
You have a full-scale military operation.
We don't know whether this is the result of a bomb or whether it is yet another aircraft that has targeted a symbol of the United States power, but there is smoke pouring out of the Pentagon. This is coming at 9:43 Eastern Time. And we understand that there's a bomb at a heliport being reported.